Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Mcdonald, and I was the first product manager on Firebase. I started in 2014, and since then, Firebase has grown tremendously. Today, we're going to talk about what Firebase is. We'll talk about highlights of what's new in Firebase, particularly what's new since this last Google I/O. And we'll also show ways that Firebase can help you across your app development lifecycle, from building your application to launching it in the Play Store and growing your user base. We started Firebase with a simple vision: to help developers create extraordinary experiences. And we've come a long way since then. We started with just a real-time database, and now we're a broad app development platform. And while our platform and community have expanded tremendously since then, we remain focused on that goal of helping mobile and web app teams succeed. We do this by providing a platform that helps you solve many of the key problems across your entire app development lifecycle. From helping you build better and faster using Google Scale infrastructure like Google Cloud Functions and Google Cloud Firestore, to helping you improve the quality of your application by giving you insights into the application's crash and performance history. And lastly, we help you grow your application, giving you tools like analytics and remote configuration that let you A/B test your application with ease. So whether you're looking to build a new application or looking to extend the functionality of your current applications, we're here to help you solve those key problems so you can channel more of your time and expertise into building the experiences that your users really care about rather than the mechanics of building an application. And we've seen incredible momentum just in the last year with Firebase. We now have over 1.2 million monthly active applications, including many really, really large companies and global partners. You may recognize some of them. We also appreciate that so many of you are trusting us with your applications, whether you're a sole developer building an application on the side for fun, or when you're working at a large enterprise on a massive mobile development team. We're committed to helping developers wherever you are succeed. We've made a ton of updates to Firebase just in the past year, including releasing 4 new products. While some of these are based on tools that we already had at Google, a lot of them comes from developer feedback from people just like you. We also know that one of the big areas that you care about is data privacy, especially with the new European Union General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. To help developers succeed under this regulation, as well as many other ones, we've updated our terms of service to also include data processing and security terms, so that you can be confident that you can launch your application anywhere in the world. We've also worked really hard to make sure that we'll meet your compliance needs, whatever they may be, complying with many privacy and security standards like ISO and SOC. So you can feel confident that you're building on infrastructure with world-class security and data protection. Enough of the compliance stuff. Let's see how people are using Firebase in action. So let's hear from a couple partners who are building on top of Firebase. Oh, let's try playing the video again. Oh, back. Will it play? Everyone can kind of twiddle their thumbs and we'll see. It auto-played when I did it. Can we try tapping the video and seeing if it'll play? Otherwise, we can move on and I can just talk about what they did. We'll give it another 10 seconds. Oh, something happened. Autoplay. No. Okay, we'll move on. This app highlighted a number of our various partners, a company called SworeKit that's a very popular exercise application that their entire workout routine and exercise fitness tracker fits on top of the Firebase real-time database. Firebase storage uses Firebase authentication in order to store and sync all of that data. Companies like Doodle, who have used the various Firebase app quality products to ensure a very high quality, obviously, application and kind of understand what's happening when their applications crash. And lastly, Halfbrick and Google Photos, who are using various analytics and growth tools to understand what their funnel looks like and track user conversion through the entire application. Let's actually look at each of those stages individually and see what's new in each of those areas. First, we're going to focus on ways that Firebase helps you build better applications. So something that I find really amazing about mobile app development is just how fast this entire industry moves. The degree of sophistication of apps today, even compared to a few years ago, is absolutely astonishing. So the kind of unfortunate thing there is building successful apps requires you to pick your battles very carefully, right? Because it's moving so quickly, this question of what do I build and try and build myself versus what do I buy off the shelf is a really, really difficult decision. You know, whether you're a single person trying to build all that infrastructure yourself, or whether you work at a large company. So since we created Firebase, we've tried to make that a much easier thing, right? We've tried to empower developers to build better applications and more successful applications by letting you take so much of that stuff off the shelf and not have to deal with management or overhead of infrastructure. And this is something that I've experienced firsthand. So I remember the first time that I saw Firebase, probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was in college studying computer science, and I had just spent 9 months on a college project building a collaborative document editor. And we spent probably 8.5 of those 9 months building a backend that basically just synced and stored comments. And we spent basically no time on our mobile or web front ends, which is obviously the thing that everyone cares about. The app sort of worked, but it was definitely not the experience that the customer had in mind. Towards the end of that year, the CTO of Firebase came by our class to give a demo. So we pulled open 2 browser windows, and in those, they each had a drawing app. So you would draw on one, and immediately it would sync to drawing on the other one. And that was really cool. And then he took it one step further, and he went offline. So he went off of Wi-Fi, drew on one, drew on the other, went back on Wi-Fi, and immediately everything merged. And it was just this seamless experience, and our minds were blown. And then he took it one step even further, and he showed us the entire app was 400 lines of JavaScript. So all of this functionality was implemented by Firebase automatically. And I knew in that moment that we could have built a much better app experience had we taken that tooling and just used it off the shelf, right? Because that would have solved all of our problems of storing and syncing comments. We could have just taken it, plugged it in, and actually spent 9 months building a great application. So since that demo, that was the Firebase real-time database, we've worked to provide that same magical experience across all different types of developer products, across also all different types of developers, whether you're a student, whether you're scaling a startup, or whether you work for a giant company. One of our core focuses is to make sure that Firebase is just as powerful and easy to use, regardless of the size of your team or the scale of your app. That's why we build things like Cloud Firestore or Cloud Functions that are essentially agnostic to scale. So whether you're a very small company or a very large company, we're trying to make that experience the same. And going forward, you'll see us invest increasingly in tooling to help you better monitor that infrastructure, test your code, and help you build more secure applications. So let's talk about the products that we've actually launched to help make that possible. About 6 months ago, we launched a product called Cloud Firestore, which is our next generation database that stores and synchronizes data at scale. Cloud Firestore is a NoSQL document-oriented database that solves some of the toughest problems dealing with application data. Unlike traditional, say SQL or RDBMS databases, Cloud Firestore allows you to access your documents directly through our client SDKs. So you don't have to spin up proxy servers to handle those requests. You can just connect directly from a browser or a mobile device to a database. Cloud Firestore also lets you listen to data changes in real time. This makes it really easy to build rich reactive apps. You can simply register a listener and be notified anytime new data comes in. Additionally, it also automatically caches the results of the queries that you run so that everything works offline. I have been consistently amazed traveling around South Korea. Your internet is absolutely fantastic, and offline you may not think about that, but if you're building applications for emerging markets, you need this functionality, and it's really difficult to build native offline support directly into your applications. Cloud Firestore provides this out of the box, so you don't even have to think about it. You can just build your application, and it's already there. Cloud Firestore is also a strongly consistent, globally replicated database. It offers a rich set of queries, And also, those queries are very performant. So one of the nice things about Cloud Firestore is that queries in Cloud Firestore scale with the result set rather than with the query that you're writing. So if you say select star limit 1, the result set is still of limit 1. So even if your app scales to 10x the user base, if you're writing that query, you're not going to be hit with performance issues, and you're not going to have to rebuild your entire backend. Google is known for industry-leading databases, from Bigtable to Megastore and now to Spanner, and Cloud Firestore builds on all that knowledge to provide that same characteristics for you. Firestore adoption has been crazy as well. So we've seen 200,000 databases created since October, which is one database about every other minute. And if you use Cloud Firestore already, you probably know that a lot of folks are actually using it with Cloud Functions as well. Cloud Functions, which we launched last year, lets you automatically run little chunks of backend code in response to events triggered by, say, Cloud Firestore or other Cloud or Firebase features, as well as HTTP requests. So it's kind of the smallest unit of compute that you can run to actually respond to changes. Firebase users all around the world are using functions to create these very, very kind of simple workflows that actually represent much more complex applications. So an interesting use case here is the Hamilton app. So if anyone is familiar with this, Hamilton is an incredibly popular musical in the United States, and tickets are really, really hard to find. So they actually do auctions, probably about every week, to sell that new batch of tickets. So as you can predict, this is a really, really kind of spiky load on the system, because the app, everyone sends a push notification, everyone comes to the app to try and buy their tickets, and so we go from 0 requests to millions of requests, literally in a second or two. And so Cloud Functions and Cloud Firestore scale up automatically. The developers of Hamilton don't want to think about provisioning a bunch of extra resources to handle this traffic. They just let Functions and Firestore spin up for them, and then spin down automatically after that load goes away, so they're not paying for all of those resources. They just get the benefit of instant scale. Some other features that we've added recently to Cloud Functions. We now have client-side SDKs, so you can actually call your functions directly from the client without having to deal with networking or anything else. So you can just provide a payload and call the function. We've also added support for TypeScript, if you enjoy writing TypeScript. That was, again, a heavily requested developer feature that we incorporated directly into the product. And lastly, another huge issue, especially if you tried writing these functions before, is how do you test them, especially how do you test them locally before you ship them out to production. We've added a unit testing framework such that you can actually test everything locally before you deploy. We've also added a number of new monitoring tools, so you can actually understand what's happening when you're testing or when you're debugging before they go out into production. And once they're in production, you can see what errors are occurring in your function, if any, as well as track performance, latency, and memory usage. So when we say that Firebase allows you to build better apps, we mean more than just the scalable infrastructure. We want to help you with tasks that are also really, really crucial, like user authentication. Firebase authentication is used in hundreds of thousands of applications today to authenticate millions of users. So every day we see over 80 million authentications. And so if many of you have used mobile apps, you remember that you probably only sign into your mobile app maybe once a month or once every several months. So this is 80 million new sign-ins a day, right? That is not just everyone signing in, that is new users signing in. And we've done that because we've added a number of really, really nice sign-in mechanisms. So last year, we partnered with Digits from Fabric, who we acquired probably about a year ago, to introduce phone number authentication, which is huge, especially in emerging markets. And similarly, we're working to make sign-in as frictionless as possible. And so this is about the simplest that you can get by doing passwordless sign-in. You just type in your email, we send you kind of a one-time password to your email, you click the button in the email, and you're signed in. You don't have to remember a password. That's pretty simple, and that reduces friction and gets your users back into your application. I know that I was once logged out of an app, and I didn't remember my password, and I didn't go back to the app for 6 months. Right? You don't want that happening to your users. You want to use something like this. We also keep integrating those different sign-in mechanisms into Firebase UI, which is our open source client library that implements a bunch of different authentication flows. It's available on Android, iOS, and the web. And again, it's being used by tens of thousands of applications across all those platforms to seamlessly sign users in. Okay. Machine learning is probably a huge buzzword that you've heard, and if you've been to some of the talks here, I'm sure every other speaker has also mentioned it, but it's a huge focus for Google, and it's becoming a huge focus for a lot of developers. We feel that machine learning has the potential to unlock solutions to many very interesting challenges. But we also want to make sure that all developers have access to the power of machine learning, regardless of where they are in their skill set. So that's why we're launching a product called ML-Kit. It's in beta today, and it brings the power of machine learning directly to your Android and iOS applications. You don't have to understand TensorFlow or understand how to do complex neural networks. You can just import our clients and start doing things today. So we provide 5 different APIs out of the box that include text extraction, face detection, barcode scanning, image labeling, and landmark detection. And these APIs let you easily build ML-powered experiences into your applications without having to do a whole PhD in machine learning. These APIs are also available both on device, if you want to do local development, or in the cloud, if you want to make calls up to the cloud to get slightly different performance behaviors. And if you do really understand what you're doing and you want to tweak the behavior here, we let you go deeper by allowing you to upload custom TensorFlow Lite models. That gets served, those models get served through Google's global infrastructure. So again, you don't have to worry about scaling. You just give us a model, and we'll serve it all down. Similarly, you don't have to bundle that model in with your app binary. So you can have a very small app binary download size, and then pull these models in later as users need them. So let's take a look at one of our launch partners, so Visco, which is a popular photo sharing app that lets you transform and edit a bunch of photos in really, really nice ways. So one of the problems of Visco, though, is there are over 130 different configuration options. And I know I've actually used Visco. I'm good friends with the CEO, actually. I used to work out with him. And I told him this. I was like, hey, your app is kind of hard to use because as an amateur, I don't really know what I'm doing. So they used ML-Kit and a custom model that they're serving through our custom TensorFlow Lite model serving service. And they now build a recommendation feature that automatically picks the best possible photo preset based on what people are liking or favoriting within the application. So, for example, if a user creates a portrait photo, they can automatically kind of recommend what people's faces look best or what people like best to get the best possible likes or ranking out of the photo. Another really cool feature of this is it's all done on device. So you don't have to upload your photo to do this. You can actually edit locally, which protects our users' privacy. So there are a lot of really cool features that we've added to Firebase on the develop side. But as you all know, if you've launched an app in the App Store, just having a bunch of really cool features isn't enough to actually make sure that the app is successful, right? If all of your features are causing the app to be slow or to crash, no one is going to want to use it. Without high app quality, you can't maximize that business potential. We've done a couple research studies on this using Play Store data and found that over 42% of users who give a 1-star rating reference crashes or bugs. So if your app is crashing, that's probably why people are leaving these reviews. On the other side, about 3 in 4 of 5-star reviews mention speed, usability, and design. If you have a high-quality app that functions really well, people really like that. So that relationship between app quality, customer satisfaction, and even retention, right? Those 1-star users are not sticking around. You need to have those 5-star users in order to keep building your application. And we think that Firebase can help you solve this problem, right? We can help you build quality into your application before it even gets into the store using TestLab to try and understand exactly what the performance of your app is kind of on the ground. And then once it's out in the wild, you can understand what the performance of HTTP requests are or what drop frame rates look like using performance monitoring. And lastly, if your app is crashing, you can integrate with Crashlytics to understand exactly what's going on. We've added a number of different improvements to these products, and we'll see what those look like now. So the first of them is we brought Crashlytics to the Firebase console in beta, and now it's in GA. It's ready to be used by everyone around the world. And in fact, Over 3 billion devices around the world are using Crashlytics today. We're honored to help you build so many applications with such a good user experience. A few months ago, we also integrated Crashlytics with Google Analytics for Firebase. So you can actually see all of the analytics events that led up to a crash. We call those breadcrumbs. So breadcrumbs are one of the main reasons why one of our partners, WeTransfer, decided to try out Crashlytics when it was released in beta last October. So WeTransfer is a company that lets users share large files easily, and they have over 40 million monthly active users transferring over 1 billion files every month. And it's critical that those files are transferred really smoothly. If you're halfway in between a file transfer and the app crashes, you might not want to use that app anymore. So they had a crazy goal, maybe possibly an obsession even, of getting 100% crash-free. 100%, very hard to get, so they've said, okay, we'll say 99.5%. And if an app ever drops below 99.5%, the team actually drops all feature development and focuses entirely on fixing those crashes. So breadcrumbs show them exactly what happened that led up to that crash, and it allows them to debug much easier. So if that ever falls below 99.5, the team just goes in, looks at these breadcrumbs, understands exactly what's going on, and then one developer can go reproduce the problem and fix the bug, rather than the entire team having to drop everything to try and generate a repro and fix the issue. As you can see, they found this feature to be a, quote, game changer. While 100% is very, very audacious, and they may not reach that, we help them chase that dream and make it much, much easier for them to hit that goal. Another improvement that we added to Crashlytics was an integration with Slack. So we want Firebase to integrate very seamlessly with whatever tools you already use. So anytime there's a crash, we can now send that notification into whatever Slack channel you want. And similarly, we're working on integrations with other products in the future. We're also really excited about the future of Crashlytics. So in order to help us focus on that, we're asking that you migrate away from Firebase crash reporting and upgrade to Crashlytics. Crash reporting will still be available through September, but Crashlytics is the primary crash reporting tool, and we want you to upgrade to that as soon as possible. So crashes are only part of it, right? If the app is crashing, one could argue that you're already failing. A really important thing that you can do before you get to that point is check out the performance of your application that may potentially lead to a crash. At last I/O in 2017, we launched a tool called Firebase Performance Monitoring. And that's our tool for understanding performance insights from what the user is seeing in their application. Over the last year, we're graduating it to GA because we've tested it and we're confident that it's ready for production. We also have added a couple nice new features that you may be excited about. So first, we've heard that there's just a ton of data in there. So you can say, understand per user or per country performance or per carrier performance. But we've also heard that it's kind of hard to slice and dice this data. So we've actually provided a new issues feed right at the top that highlights exactly what we think is a potential problem in your app and kind of do that digging for you. You can also click into the issue and understand exactly what is going on. We're also collecting a number of new metrics right out of the box. So in addition to app start time and HTTP network requests, we also have slow and frozen frames. So we collect all of that data automatically for every screen in your application, and you can understand kind of, again, the performance of what's happening in your app. So between custom traces that you could set up yourself, as well as kind of the out-of-the-box metrics that we provide there, performance monitoring has your back, and it lets you understand exactly what your users are seeing in the application. One of our partners, Swiggy, is a giant food delivery service in India. And they started using performance monitoring about a year ago, right when it was in beta. As soon as they added the SDK, they realized they had a huge problem with app start time. And as we all know, first impressions matter. If you open the app, it takes 10 seconds to load. You might just delete the app. Performance monitoring helped them diagnose what issues were causing that, and they improved their Android time by 2x and their iOS startup time by 12x. So that's a huge, huge improvement just by adding the SDK and understanding a little bit about how their app was behaving. Their customers also noticed this, right? They saw a 2.2% increase in daily orders and a ton of new 5-star reviews, right? When you're processing 350,000 orders a day, that's a huge change. And there's one other piece of app quality that I mentioned at the beginning that we're going to come back and touch on. So part of Firebase is that Firebase is cross-platform. It works on Android and iOS. And you might have noticed, as you were using our products, we have a product called Firebase Test Lab with this unfortunate for Android under the name. We are dropping that. Firebase Test Lab will also be available on iOS. Test Lab provides you, if you don't know what it is, with both physical devices and virtual devices where you can actually test simulated usage across a ton of different hardware versions and OS versions. So in addition to, or with the addition of Test Lab for iOS, we help you get into a high quality state on both Android and iOS before you release into the App Store. Hopefully all of you have heard of Spotify. So Spotify has a comprehensive set of end-to-end tests that they run every night. And before Firebase, they actually used to have their own physical device farm in one of their data centers where they were running all of these tests. And it was a huge pain to maintain, especially with the proliferation of devices, over time. Additionally, tests would fail or they didn't trust them, and so it just became very problematic. They decided eventually that they just didn't want to be in the business of running a mobile test infrastructure company. So they switched to Firebase Test Lab. And they can actually record all of their test videos and immediately understand where the app fails. Plus, it's integrated, those videos are integrated with cloud storage for Firebase. So they actually store all of those archival videos within Firebase. In case there's a regression, they can go back, rewatch the video, and understand what was wrong. Because of the sheer number of devices in Test Lab, they've actually doubled their testing throughput. And Test Lab has given them the confidence that their tests will run quickly and reliably. So they can actually stay focused on building the music app, not testing all of their different devices. So iOS support is coming in the next several months. If you're interested, you can either visit the Firebase console or feel free to take a photo of this link and sign up to get on the wait list to start using it today. Okay. We've talked about building applications and understanding application quality. Now, let's talk about how we can actually improve engagement in the app and grow a meaningful business on top of that, right? Having a great app isn't enough. So this is a problem that's personal to me and probably personal to a lot of you. I used to build consumer mobile apps, just like many of you. And often we would launch the app. It would be very successful. We'd get a ton of 5-star reviews. We'd think, oh, everything is going great. And then we looked at analytics several days later or a week later or a month later, and we realized that people were using the app and then churning and just disappearing, never to come back. So even though we had tens of thousands of people coming in the top of the funnel, we would just lose them, and we weren't growing our daily active user count. So retention and engagement are really difficult problems. And just because you have a successful launch doesn't mean that the product is going to be successful long term. So we would talk to other developers at conferences or that we knew in our professional networks, and we would always hear this kind of one consistent thing about growth. And growth is all about experimenting, right? We all have gut intuitions about what we think is right for our product, but there are lots of people out there, and my one opinion is not necessarily the right opinion for everyone. So it's much more effective to experiment and have data-driven decisions for our application. So within Firebase, we've built a number of products that help you engage across every stage of the experimentation process. First, you observe what your users are doing within the application. Then you make a hypothesis about what you think will improve whatever that desired behavior is that will change your business metrics. Next, you test that hypothesis by adding a new feature or marketing the product slightly differently. And lastly, you analyze the user's reaction to all of the various actions and see if you can roll that feature out more broadly. At Firebase, We're building tools to help you scale that process so you can iterate quickly, launch features confidently, and ultimately grow your business along whatever your success metrics are. So let's take a look at each of these and learn how Firebase makes this process really easy. So it all starts with observing your users through Google Analytics for Firebase. Specifically, Firebase helps you understand where your users are coming from, what your users are engaging with, how often they come back, or if they do come back, and how much revenue you generate in your application. With Firebase, you can always see what's going on within an application. And last year, we added the ability to see individual user data, though it's anonymized, through debug view and stream view, which is kind of real-time views on top of analytics. And now we've also added the ability to get project-level recording. So you can actually see across your entire project, both Android and iOS, what's happening at kind of the overall health of your business. You can now see daily active users, revenue, etc., across that whole spectrum. So you can now get app-level usage, user-level usage, and kind of whole project usage. So that visibility into user behavior is critical because in order to drive growth, you have to both identify a trend in what your users are doing and then find out which users are not doing the thing that you want them to do. Then you have to make that guess, that hypothesis of what is going to change in order to drive those business metrics. So Firebase predictions and Google Analytics can help you segment your users and understand exactly what's going on. With audiences in Google Analytics, you can segment users based on historical data. But with Firebase, we also want to give you another way, which is predicting users' future behavior. So instead of looking back on what they've done, you can ask Firebase predictions to look forward and guess what users might do. Using both audiences and predictions, you can target users individually to try and drive that better outcome. So Firebase Predictions, which launched last October, applies Google's expertise in machine learning to analytics data in your application. So the analytics data comes in, and based on that past behavior, we try and predict future behavior. And therefore, we also try and create dynamic user targeting groups. So out of the box, we can actually create those groups based on users that we think will make purchases in your application, as well as users who we think will churn. So if you're tracking conversion events, we can also start bringing those events and try and get app-specific data. So users who are likely to share a song or like someone else's photo. So since launch, we've actually made predictions on over 4 billion individual users about what they may or may not do. Google Analytics and Firebase Predictions give you 2 ways of segmenting users that may be underperforming. And Firebase gives you actions to take so you can actually target those segments and improve the health of your application. So first, you can personalize the product experience using Firebase Remote Config and maybe convert a user by incentivizing them to make a purchase or otherwise personalizing the experience. You can also send highly relevant targeted notifications using Firebase Cloud Messaging to try and re-engage the users. So let's see how each of these is used in practice. With Firebase Remote Config, you can control the behavior and appearance of your application without pushing updates to the app store. So you don't have to re-rev your app and wait a week. You can just make little changes immediately. So you can change the marketing copy or color and size of UI elements, or even the layout of your app, depending on how you set it up. And you can quickly tweak them and push them out instantly. One of the really powerful aspects, again, is the customization using Google Analytics audiences or Firebase predictions. So maybe you want to incentivize users who haven't yet purchased by offering them a discount. Or maybe you want to change the theme to be more receptive to users in a particular country. Remote Config, again, provides deeply personal experiences controlled by those audiences or predictions groups to keep your users engaged and continue moving them down your funnel. Another action you can use to optimize your business is Firebase Cloud Messaging to re-engage your users. Cloud Messaging lets you send the right messages to the right users at the right time to try and keep them engaged. Whether you're using our API to programmatically send messages or just going to the console and trying to send them directly from there, we give you analytics to understand how many messages were sent, as well as what the open rate was. So one common practice is to send messages to users who haven't opened the app in a while to try and improve retention. But with Firebase predictions, we can actually proactively reach out to users who we think are likely to churn rather than sending them to everyone. It's a powerful tool because it allows you to intervene before it's too late, before they've already left the app. And that gives you a better chance of retaining them. But as we've mentioned, whether you're using remote config to change in-app behavior or sending notifications to re-engage, you want to test to actually understand if users are coming back, if you're getting the desired result. So that's why we launched Firebase A/B testing. Firebase A/B testing lets you use data to drive those product decisions. So you can define A/B variants or a number of other variants and set a goal of the experiment. So you can say, I want to improve 7-day retention, or I want to improve revenue. And our system will do all of the hard work. So you can either randomly distribute your user base across the experiment or do some more complex Bayesian statistics to tell you which variant is more likely to be achieving that result. A/B testing makes this experimentation really easy. We even give you the ability to track a secondary objective. So you can actually track, I want to improve retention, but I also want to not harm revenue, or vice versa. And once you verify that result, you can then start rolling that out across your entire application using the earlier features. So Halfbrick actually used this to grow their application, to try and boost their 7-day retention rate. They were looking for some pretty creative ways to improve retention in their game, which is Dan the Man. And they wanted to use a promotion where users would receive some form of in-app currency in order to win prizes. So initially, they tried building their own churn prediction model, but like most publishers, their expertise is not in machine learning. So their time is better spent building the game rather than building all that infrastructure. They started using Firebase predictions to see if churn prediction would actually drive the result they were looking for. And very quickly, they set up an experiment that had 3 groups. So it was a control group that got nothing, another group that when the user completed level 3, they'd get a promotion, and then another group that was just based on who Firebase predictions thought would churn. And what they found was, they found that 20%, they had a 20% increase in 7-day retention on that last group of showing promotions to users who they thought would churn. It's amazing. So as we saw, Firebase can help you with every stage across your experimentation process. Google Analytics lets you observe what's happening in the application. It helps you find user segments based on past behavior, while you can then use predictions to find interesting segments based on what users may do in the future. Once you've found those segments, we let you target them with various actions. You can personalize the content with remote config, or you can send highly relevant notifications using cloud messaging. And most importantly, you can roll this out in a safe, low-risk way using A/B testing and actually get data to support exactly what is happening in your application. Okay, so we've talked about how Firebase can help you build better applications, improve the quality of your app, and grow your business. So let's briefly talk about the future of Firebase. Personally, I'm super excited about the future of app development and what is coming next. As you can see from both the updates from Firebase as well as what's coming out of Google, we're working really hard to advance technologies, but also empower developers like you to use those new technologies as soon as possible. The most exciting part for me, though, is seeing what all of you will build. I was in India last year, and I had the privilege of meeting with a team who's actually building a sign language translation app. It's called Hand Talk. So this is really cool because not only is it an interesting technical problem, it solves a really interesting people problem. It's helped improve the quality of life for everyone in the community, and it's really, really inspiring. So those are the things that motivate me to help building Firebase and to help all of you succeed. Looking forward over the next year, we're hoping to deepen integrations within Firebase to help you solve problems like that across all of the different stages of your app lifecycle. And we're also excited to deepen integrations across Google, from streamlining building web applications to enabling you to scale on top of Google Cloud Platform, and also helping make machine learning easier through things like TensorFlow. We want to make it all a much better developer experience for you. Our mission is to help you succeed as developers, and we're hoping to do that by making Firebase the best application development platform for everyone, regardless of where you are or the size of the team that you're working on. We're also just getting started. Please, please, please keep sending us applications that you've built. Interact with us on social media and via our support channels. On behalf of me and everyone on the team, thank you very much, and we really look forward to seeing what you build.